Why is Rod Stewart making Glastonbury political? What is that about? Why don't singers just shut up about politics and just sing their bloody songs? No, mate, I don't think you're sexy, particularly if you're a fan of Nigel Farage.
Hello, it is already day 4 of Glastonbury and we are here with wonderful Billy Bragg.
Day four?
What have been highlights so far from left field?
Well, really, Michael Eavis coming to visit us just now. When he was more mobile, every year he'd rock up at some point. So I missed him over the last few years. I mean, he's 90 this year. But he's still totally focused. He remembered all the things that we did before, and we were talking about where left field first started out, back a ways over there. So yeah, that's been a real highlight for me.
Last year when we spoke to you, we asked you what your message would be to the then incoming government about arts funding and music in schools. A year on, what would your message be? Be
a Labour Party. You know, unfortunately, I think they're in some ways distracted by reform and the success they had in the council election, punishing the old age pensioners with their winter fuel allowance, taking money away from people with disabilities, buying nuclear weapons. You know, it's like, I was talking it last night on stage. When I first played it, this was a campaign for nuclear disarmament festival, CND festival. And so consequently, everybody who opposed Thatcher was here for that. And I just can't believe we're back in a situation where they're buying more nuclear bombs. It's like, I'm all in favour of retro nostalgia, but this is a bit ridiculous,
Understandably, there's a lot of kind of disappointment and a lot of people maybe not really knowing what to do now because of that disappointment in Labour. What would you say is the best cure for apathy?
Well, I spoke to a couple of young women who were yesterday who are part of a youth organisation for a campaign for proportional representation, which is a really important thing because there's a danger that reform could win the next election on 35% of the vote. Yeah. The majority of people voting against them. The Labour Party won all these seats, a landslide, without winning the majority of seats, and that's a real problem. I mean, even from a Labour point of view, I have to fess up. I'm not happy that it's possible for the Labour Party to do that without getting the majority support, because unless you have the majority of people behind you, it's hard to do the things that you set out to do. So these young people, they're organised a big protest behind King's Cross on weekend after next, I think. I found that really, really encouraging because we've talked about it for a long time. The Labour Party conference has voted in favour of some form of proportional voting, but the leadership, when the system delivers them a huge majority on a minority vote, but my kind of warped hope is that the Tories are so sunk by reform that they realise that the only possibility for them to get any seats anymore is if there's proportional representation. So I think if the Tories come out in favour of PR, then the Labour Party might be forced to pick that up as well. Not just to stop reform, because reform voters have every right to vote for reform if that's what they want to do. And I'll support them if that's what they want to do. But they shouldn't be able to win an election on a minority vote, whether it's Labour Party, Conservative Party or Reform. So that was one way that we could actually make sure that we get the government that we actually all support and choose. I know it's boring, I know it's not revolution, I know it's not to the barricades, but that's how the world changes, unfortunately.
So thinking about, I guess, the future, the next generation, the future, that's not too scary to say.
It's not. No, they're all out there. They're all out there, there are young bands out there who are firing up. Our friends Kneecap will be playing this afternoon. They've obviously set the tone for political music this year. But, rather than Rod Stewart coming out in favour of reform, I'm like,
For sure.
I mean, what's that about? Why is Rod Stewart making Glastonbury political? What is that about? Why don't singers just shut up about politics and just sing their bloody songs? No, mate, I don't think you're sexy, particularly if you're a fan of Nigel Farage. So, yeah, I mean, politics has always been part of pop. And young bands, whether their work is particularly political or not, they're taking a stand on issues like Palestine, on issues like trans rights. It's not all the sort of mainstream politics that I do around Labour Party and stuff like that, but there are political bands out there.